Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to the event, first inaugural event of Bharat Fintech Summit. I'm really privileged to have all the esteemed panelists and discussing very important topic, right? In the last 7, 8 years, if you look at it back, the digital kind of the transformation that India has seen, I think lots of has to do with the kind of the digital infrastructure country has built. One of the important component of the digital infrastructure is that India stack, right? Which is primarily starting with the setting up the Aadhaar-based infrastructures to support your eKYC, e-sign, DigiLocker. So where we have known paperless and presenceless layer, right? And after that, NPCI coming and then setting up transforming the digital payments landscape. And the last leg of the India stack, was primarily consent layer, which formed in reality in form of the account aggregator. But India Stack is not only limited to these 4 layers, but it continued to expand that India digital infrastructure, which GSTs, the GEM kind of infrastructure, and lots more. So today we'll try to explore that what are the features, what the feature that we are looking, what are the different use cases across that all the elements of the digital infrastructure that we are talking about. So thanks for everyone, and then get it started with the discussions. And I'll start directly with Mahesh coming to you. Sorry, I'm just skipping it because you are one of the center stone of this India stack, which is account aggregator, right? He's driving entity called Sahamati, which is self-regulatory organization, which is building the policies, building the guidelines to, and promoting also account aggregator, right? So Mahesh, coming to you. We have seen that the last 2 years, the kind of the speed that account aggregator has seen, now it was there almost 2016, but in the last couple of years and last year itself, it has seen. But we still has to see the loss of the use cases coming around. So I want to take your bit, you may talk about the journeys or how this is shaping up and what are the use cases. And how do you see that, what are the challenges that it needs to still overcome to become a full-fledged part of the entire ecosystem?
So thank you. For anything to, fully scale, it won't happen, within a year or so. And especially in India, when you actually speak about the scale, it means your digital public infrastructure now, which is the key word, what everybody is talking about. It has to go and reach the people across the country. So the first few years, what we did was to actually go on, actually work with all the large banks, including the public sector banks, which had to come on the account aggregator as the FIP, as we call, who are going to, share your data. And, like about a few months ago, all the banks, all the public sector, banks went live. And if you see today, like almost 1.2 billion bank accounts are already there on A. So you would have heard about open banking, etc. But I think nowhere else in the world you see like the way it is over here. What is good about AA is it's not open banking, but it's actually open finance, because it is not only the banking information which is shared, but it is all of your financial data, which means your investment data, your insurance data, your pension fund, and now a few months ago, including your GST data has been approved, and which will go live. So the use cases which will be very, very impactful, on AA, I would say, would be your cash flow lending, which would be the very, the important one, because in India, like almost, 50 to 60% of the MSMEs are not able to get access to the formal credit, and the account aggregator is the one which we strongly believe will solve this important problem.
Thank you, Mahesh. And I'll keep coming back to you to get more insight into the account aggregator. But now just come back to Niraj. So you have been building, in fact, exploiting that India stack ecosystem pretty well to provide the innovative solutions for that customers to create that value chain digitally, be it starting with the GST, now with IRP, and also now getting into the account aggregator. How do you see that? What are the different use cases, especially in the SME, MSME, that you think that this entire infrastructure, and what could be the future that it may be solving?
I think, as Maheshji rightly said, that the biggest people who are missing out into the entire ecosystem is the SME, MSME, and the small business owners. And India, it has been predominantly a collateral-based lending has been there up till now. And now only I would say it's still the initiation of a business-based lending which is happening into it. Now, what are the core features or the core parameters if you want to do business-based lending? First, you need to know who wants to be, means like who's the person who wants to have that money. Second is you want to be clear about what type of cash flows they have into their business. Third is whether the transaction they may want to fund or the transactions which are happening from there are genuine or not genuine. Now, you kind of take up the ONDC kind of a framework where a huge amount of retailers will come into play. And with 10 crore plus all SME, MSMEs being required to, that means like register on a invoice registry portal or IRP to kind of create a B2B invoice, this entire ecosystem journey is going to now get operationalized, wherein somebody who is kind of getting a invoice registered onto the IRP portal can actually go through an account aggregator framework, kind of ensure that the lenders are aware of his financial needs. The entire ecosystem can be digitized and the lending can happen on a click of a button. So that is a kind of a new use cases which will come up for the SME, MSME lending. And more it goes from 10 crore, 5 crore, 1 crore, and in future for the B2C kind of a part. This entire ecosystem is going to do. Now the GST data which is available along with the bank statements and the bureau reports are going to be a critical component for the lending decisions or the qualifications of that. And I was talking to few very interesting large lenders, and they said that now up to Diwali Holi lending bhi chalu hoga. So actually the SME, MSME need highest amount of funds either in March or at the Diwali time when they get highest amount of discounts from the principals they are buying the material. So much amount of quality information is now available with proper consent mechanism and with the consent of the person who wants that particular lending to be done. You can actually analyze the people in a much better way and kind of report it. So it's a kind of a very different time, very new way at looking at things, and kind of a great changes happening in India.
Thank you, Niraj. Now, Koshy, I'll come back to you since Niraj brought the point of the ONDC. Now, one of the, again, measure that digital infrastructure is getting created in the form of ONDC, right? Open Network Digital Commerce. But I think since the architect himself is here, so I'll ask him that how does, you can talk about the journey for the ONDCs, the thought process, and how do you see that ONDC will contribute to the entire the ecosystem of the financial services value chain? So that would be pretty interesting to, for all of us to know who is coming from the finance segment.
Okay, Aman, thank you. And I'm just taking on from what Mahesh and Niraj were saying. If you look at today, digital commerce is something that all of us are using. Yeah. But the reality is that's only we are using. If you look at the real penetration, it's about 5 to 6% of the buying side and less than a percentage in the selling side. So it means that, you can't blame that because anytime when a new closed loop platform comes, they will look at what is where there is the low-hanging fruits. We are the low-hanging fruits. But finally, India is not just this. India is a very, very broad segment of varieties of buyers and sellers. The whole idea of ONDC is to democratize commerce. It means that it gives equal opportunity to the big and the small. And so what we are doing is while the protocol which is proven is enabling big and the small, we are taking an extra effort to work with the diverse institutions like NABARD, SIDBI, MSM, State MSME, Central MSME Ministry, all of them, to give an extra helping hand to these segments who can be benefited by it. And when they are able to move in the coming few months with a digital transaction, that forms the raw material for Mahesh to take it, and massage it, and somebody else like Niraj to take it and massage it and make credits available. And that is going to be a big transformation. If I just give you one example to just make life a little easy. For example, all of us are very familiar with Kanchipuram silk sari, okay? And we will all go to the branded shops and we will buy. But where does it come from? This Kanchipuram, some weavers from Kanchipuram and who are doing. Today, if they want to make themselves visible to make their offer to a segment of people who are not too bothered about a brand name, but from which shop it is bought, but want the same quality of silk, today there is an opportunity. In fact, as a representation, in fact, SIDBI took the initiative and 8 Kanjipuram weavers are already in the net. So I'm advertising for them. You can go and probably get the same Kanjipuram silk for half the price. And now when they have the digital transaction, that, I don't have to explain to you guys how this is going to completely change the way they will be able to continue with their scaling, continue with their special Diwali offers and so on and so forth. So I just want to give the big picture over to you and then probably we can take it further.
No, thanks. So let me just take that views from other panelists. So when I come to you, so Perfios has been working on the lots of banking data for quite a long time, right? And now it's with the account aggregator also into that space. From your opinion, and since you're driving the product side, just want to understand that what are the challenges that it needs to solve from the banking it comes when using those banking data? What are the challenges that it's trying to solve? And what it will take it to become a kind of the mass adoptions into going forward in the near future?
Yeah, thanks Shashank for that question. Just a word on the India stack. I'm not sure any country in the world has a prefix to a technology stack. We should be very proud of what we have done as an India stack here, where we have brought in government, regulators, citizens, and evangelists and industry bodies together to build a stack. Now, with this, the way we've been working on banking data aggregation for various use cases, AA becomes the catalyst and I'm sure in future becomes the de facto mode of sharing data. Any technology at scale changes the behavior. Today, you no more to make a payment, take your wallet, you take your phone, because that's a change of technology has brought in at scale. Similarly, maybe a year or two, we've got our foundations right, the AA becomes the de facto way of sharing data. You won't be sharing scanned copies, printouts, or where there are a lot more data leakages, etc. Which means, what is it for a banking industry to look at? It's just a source of data? No, it's a real-time, authentic, consented data. That's each word has its own powerful way. Some of the challenges that we help customers to address from an MSME side is, you have typical any lending journey has a very boring application form to be filled, followed by data to be collected, and then the underwriting and bunch of other APIs that gets integrated, and then the rest of the disbursement or the loan journey that happens. So why not take the AA data to fill some of these form elements? You have data of my SBI bank account that I have given a consent and the address, etc., where it can auto be filled. I can, of course, go ahead and make the corrections if needed and use the data for underwriting for two purposes. One is underwriting. That is part of the problem with AA, GSTN coming in for an MSME. The fundamental problem that we want to solve, this as an industry body, etc., is the way a collection happens is not syncing with my cash flow date. With the banking data and GSTN coming real time, you can pretty much be sure that my cash flow date is on 7th. So can I keep the EMI on 8th or 9th, where the probability of defaulting is significantly less than always keeping it at 2nd of every month, where the probability is much higher. This changes the dimension in which the banks work differently, because you have to customize some of these products based on the MSME needs. And well, that is part of the problem. Now comes saying, if I'm customize these products to some of these MSME while acquiring data is getting solved via AA, how do I go to a larger scale, acquire more customers, give a lending proposition for different products, customize tailor-made products? That's where the entire OKN piece fits in, where we have an open credit network. And again, this is something technology at scale will certainly take some time to get it going. We already have some initial success with GEM, Government e-market portal, and GST Sahai getting started, etc., where the actual inclusion can happen here, where people are getting PO financed as low as 600 rupees to few lakhs. Now, this can be a fantastic catalyst for the MSME, taking banking data. Do not restrict banking data only for underwriting, but beyond that. With EPF and other sources coming onto the data, they had a huge catalyst, which means how do I validate an employer verification in a retail segment, or if you're tax filing returns, or GSTN on a periodic basis. Hopefully in future, some of the other segments like an e-way, etc. would come, which means I can pretty much, instead of being it a pull product, can it be a push product? Some of these things on a real-time basis with a consented one. These are the key challenges that has been faced, and hopefully we will resolve this in the due course of time with the kind of support we get from Mahesh sir or Koshy sir on Sahamati and ONDC for this.
Thank you, Vinay. Thanks for giving a good insight. Now, Rupesh, I come to you. So most of the panelists here are building the framework or bringing the solutions to you, and you are the consumer. You are the user of that India stack. I would like you to throw out that how the entire the India stack has helped you to create that value chain for your customer. And what are still the problem that you see in that value chain that still needed to be solved with some component of the India stacks getting evolved in the future, more from the future? So currently, how the India stack has helped you, and what are the things that you're looking in the future? So what do you?
Thank you, Shashank. For those of you who don't know, we offer a co-branded credit card called One Card in partnership with our partner banks. We are very happy and grateful users of the India stack. I've been working with Mahesh and everybody from very early days, even before the company was formed 4 years ago. If you look at the India stack, let's look at the journey of the customer through our product from the beginning and how the stack helps us. How do we onboard a customer? How do we underwrite a customer? How do we facilitate payments from the customer? How do we take repayments from the customer? India stack plays a role in every part of the journey. Right? We are a credit card, it's a lifestyle product. As I say, nobody needs a credit card. You don't get up in the morning and say, I want a credit card. You may want a home loan or a car loan, but you don't need a credit card. So for us to be able to onboard the customer quickly and seamlessly is very, very important. And that's where the first part of India stack comes in. How do we do KYC? The KYC is handled by our partner banks, but we work with the banks to ensure that the journey can be completed very quickly and seamlessly. Then comes how do we underwrite the customer. I mean, the biggest challenge for us is how do we assign limits to customer and how do we price the product based on the information that the customer gives us. If we don't have adequate information, we are not able to underwrite or price the product properly. So, we are working with account aggregator ecosystem to be able to make sure that we are able to price the product and underwrite customer quickly. Then, when the customer makes a payment, on UPI, we are working with NPCI to allow UPI transactions on credit cards. The guidelines just came, few months ago. And last but the least, 60% of our customers make repayments for credit cards through UPI. So while we think it's a binary thing, people will use credit card or UPI, it's not that. Customers use both. And 60% of our customers make repayments through UPI. So if you look at the entire customer journey, India Stack plays a huge role in how we are able to run our business efficiently.
Can you also throw a light that what are the things that you would be expecting in the future in terms of you may be also building on the innovations, building the new products in the market in the future. How do you see that? What are the things that it's still yet to be solved and which you feel that maybe the next phase of the India Stack may help you to solve that?
So I think, KYC is one of the problems that different teams are working on. I was really excited by the eKYC Setu, the demo that we saw in the Global Fintech Festival, where actually the customer seamlessly switches to the Aadhaar app, does the KYC and comes back. So it allows you to pass on identity, verify identity without actually sharing data. That's a very, very powerful mechanism. While KYC processes are similar, because the guidelines are similar, the protocols are not similar. So the video KYC process is very well laid out by RBI. But if you look at the way it is implemented across banks, it's different. So today we are forced to build abstractions on top of it, handle different kinds of exceptions on top of it. A uniform protocol, even for a product like video KYC, will be super helpful. So these are some of the things which will make our life much more easier as we go ahead.
Thanks, Rupesh. So, Mahesh, I'll come back to you. So one of the things always intrigued to me, one of the good use cases for the banks to build on the account aggregator to give the complete portfolio management on the mobile banking app of the customer, right? Because most of the populations, especially in the urban and all these things, may be holding 2 or 3 bank accounts. Why it has not happened yet? That's just taking that cue from there. What are the challenges that banks foresee from their end to build it as a part of their entire the product chain as well as entire the mobile banking journey? Some of the banks have seen that embedded the account aggregator into acquiring the customer on the loan and all this thing, but it's still, most of the banks is yet to put that kind of solutions.
Yeah, so I think in a way, I think you need to ask actually the bank about what the challenges they face. But at least from our interactions with many of the banks, I think it is again about the thinking, because you had actually the team which was used to the actual journey of use case the old way, and suddenly now you have like the India stack, and like if you speak about the data layer especially, which needs to get integrated into their existing journey. And few banks have like almost 200 at least applications. So it becomes hard. But when you start introducing something new, or like the account aggregator, it is not advisable that you try to fit in AA in the existing journey. What we say is that you need to have a surgical strike on your journey, and you need to start all over again. Okay, to give a very simple example, if I'm applying for a home loan, we should not see in the journey that where exactly the account aggregator will actually be there, where you are able to get the data. Instead, the very first step in any journey at a bank, lender, or something should be the account aggregator. Okay, okay, because all the information you get, the name, address, example, PAN, which will be used in the entire journey. So if you are able to start, like actually you're designing from the scratch, you'll be able to take full benefit, of India's stack.
Thanks. And also, if you can throw the light, not only the account aggregator, but overall the India stack, because you're very closely working with the ecosystem. What are the future roadmap that you foresee of this whole things?
See, one important thing about India stack, we all have to understand for each of the layers which we have: identity layer, the payment layer, and the data layer. And after that, you have OCN and ONDC are there. Each of these can operate on its own. Like the UPI will work on its own, the account aggregator will work on its own. But you will see the actual power or the real benefit when between all the layers, when they actually speak with each other, you are able to see the actual benefit of it. Now, like we saw that about 4 months ago, GST was actually part of it. But I want to specifically highlight as ONDC and OCN have come. In AA, what happens is the end consumer, say for example, is going to a bank or going to a lender, for a loan. Okay, but if the account aggregator, OCN and ONDC, they work with each other, which they will. So now what happens is the lender will be going to the platform where the users are already there, and where in all likelihood these users want some kind of financial services. Okay, right? So in the roadmap, you will see that your PCR, your public credit registry will be there. Okay, then your telecom data will be going to come. But if you, again, as I said, if you want to extract your maximum benefit of the India stack, each of the layers have to speak with each other in their the entire journey.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Koshy, sir, I'll just come back to you on the ONDC. Like, still is evolving framework. But how do you see the banks and fintechs can work with this ONDC framework and add value to their customer and their value chain?
Let me just give a quick 1 minute possibility, and probably later in the evening we can have a detailed chat on this. If you look at today, the e-commerce, as you know, is closed platforms. The buyers on one platform can only talk to the sellers on another platform. If you look on the other side, there are a large number of entities. Let's take the people whom you referred, banks and fintech. They have a large number of digital consumers. If they want to offer digital commerce as an additional service and a complementary service, to help their clients in helping them to procure what they want. Today it's practically impossible unless they go and tie up with some existing platform at certain price and conditions. Or they have to take the extra investment to list all these producers. How many producers will do? And look from the producer side, how many platform they will tie up to. So it's practically impossible. Like in an open network like ONDC, now any of these entities who have digital consumers can now offer complementary service. Probably they will want to do everything from, when you say ONDC, it's not just B2C or it's not just consumer products, it's pretty goods and services. In future, the way it's going to evolve is that any product or service which can be given in a catalog will be digitally present in this open network. And appropriate buying platforms will help their relevant consumers to buy whatever they want from one application. Imagine, like, and I'm just taking some, earlier we had HDFC Bank here, I was just taking, just for namesake. Imagine today I can go to HDFC Bank, do my banking transaction, I can do my, some capital market transaction. Tomorrow they may just say that, hey, you want to buy a ticket, you want to buy a hotel, you want to buy the suitcase to go for the travel, you want to homestay to be filled up, you want to hail your cab. All I am giving you in one shot, from one interface. And incidentally, you also want credit for, you're planning a very heavy holiday, I can give you a nice credit, I don't need to share anything. I'm just giving you the possibility. So when you have an open network like this, the possibilities are exploding. So for each entity, so the idea is unbundling and interoperability. So that means there will be many people who will be creating new building blocks of transactions. And there will be many entities who will stitch them together to give a seamless consumer experience at the buyer side or the seller side. So what we are seeing is an open network which is enable their products being present using an open protocol will see exploding possibility. And that's why today, if you look at about 200-300 entities, we have biggies like Microsoft and Google and many startups and banks. All of them are, while we are just starting, are in the various stages of integration because they are trying to see what are the, how they can take care of this possibility. So I will just say that, you have to, one thing that is there is, as Mahesh said earlier, you have to break your mental model. Because today, when you say e-commerce, we only know platform. So if you break your mental model and think of network, you'll suddenly see exploding possibilities.
Amazing, amazing, great insights, sir. So, Niraj sir, coming back to you, since you have been using most of the infrastructure, and I heard, got to know that tomorrow your IRP solution is going to live. Now, you spoke about the MSME, but I just want to know the future. What are the future solutions that you would be expecting that maybe the government infrastructure, the regulatory framework should bring it, which try to solve some of these inherent problems which still need to be solved for the MSME, SME lending?
The first part, and I would say we have put a great India stack. We have lots of fintech, startups, tech stacks, regtechs coming up with multiple different solutions. But I go back to what Ramesh was saying few minutes back. And there is one thing, one is democratizing and kind of reaching out to all individuals. But at the same time, it is equally important is facilitating them to use these particular tools. And that is an area where I'm seeing not much work being done. I was in Bangalore yesterday with a couple of largest marketplaces into it. And when we see the total number of sellers onto those marketplaces, but actually the number of sellers who are a regular seller, it's a small percentage of the total sellers onto the marketplace. And the basic challenge into them is they are not able to take care of the regulatory requirements. They are not able to take care of their filing informations. They are not able to take care of the GST filings. And these are the areas which actually are areas where we need to focus in terms of innovation, in terms of coming up with new technologies. Another area where I feel is the B2C lending is something where a huge amount of focus with all these networks have happened. But the same amount of focus has not happened onto the B2B lending side. And that is an area where a kind of a transformation and change needs to happen. The third thing is reaching out to the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and reaching out to the smallest of the small kind of sellers and facilitating them with all this kind of innovation is something that needs to happen. So more in terms of, I would say, fancy products or smart applications is something which is important. But understanding the pain at the grassroots level and coming up with the right kind of solutions is something very, very important. And I would say even all corporates, yeah, all kind of people into the framework that we have, like us also, we focus more on the large consumers. But taking care of those anchor clients and reaching out to a much wider population of kind of people who sell into the marketplaces or sell into different areas is something that needs to happen. So I would really want to see a lot of innovation coming into this area, which will make it happen in a big way. That's my thought into the whole change.
Thank you, sir. Before I open the floor for the question, Vinay, I'll just last bite, I'll try to take, everything is talking about open data, right? And one of the always concern remain that about the data sharing and data protections, privacy part of it. How as a solution provider, you try to build a solutions which takes care of that concern of the data privacy and data sharing?
Sure. See, at the end of it, it's the citizens' charter, most of this, which means the power is given to the citizen, and when they consent to it, whether it's a one-time or a recurring one, and when they can revoke it. There isn't anything, at least so far, as something as an irrevocable or a perpetual one. Which means now the banks are compelled to adhere to the data governance policies that they have to build. It's not just consuming the data, keep consuming, getting the data on a recurring basis for a wealth management solution or a lending solution or a monitoring solution. They have to be very cognizant of the fact that when this data should be purged, because they are addressing a citizen's data, which can have a lot of sensitivity also, which means the way it has to be solutioned is keep the data, the consented data at a center place, and keep looking at when the data has to be purged. Upon the time, please purge the data, make sure that you have the sufficient audit logs, and you use the data only for the intended purpose. You cannot be taking a data for an loan and use it to a cross-sell. If your intention is cross-sell, please take the data for cross-sell, so that the customer is also aware of it. So a strong data governance policies applied on that, supported by the regulations, will certainly fix some of these data leaks problems also in the future.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Vinay. Maybe we can pick it up one or two questions from the audience. Just be sharp, take your name and organization and just ask the questions. If it's particularly targeted to particular panelists, it's okay. So can we just anyone questions? Is there?
Anyone with the questions?
Okay.
I'm Nishant. I represent Bharat Pay over here. So this is more to do with the representation that we as an industry make to the regulators. What I'm aware of, and I just came in a bit late, so I saw the KYC discussion happening, and you guys mentioned about the journeys and the way they need to be simplified. In my understanding, and I wanted your opinion on it, if let's say we were to simplify the whole piece and make, let's say, the PAN as a key identifier, and maybe preclude any requirement of anything else. Now, my belief is that that is a kind of a representation that has been made by the industry bodies to the regulators to simplify. What's your view on that, and any update that you have on that note? Yeah, I mean, any of you.
Mahesh? Yeah, Rupesh may be better, he's using, yeah.
So I'm a user, so I won't have all the answers. But I think the right way to think about this is, how are ID protocols designed? If you are aware of OAuth and OpenID, they are ways and means of authenticating a user with the user getting the data that he consented for. Okay. So I think the best way to handle identification is to come up with a common protocol which gives the user control of what he wants to share with the identifying party. We are not talking about banking data or anything. It's just the ID of the user. I think the demo that we saw during the Global Fintech Fest was one step in the direction. But somehow, as a country, we seem to have standardized on everything getting validated using OTPs. I think there could be better ways of doing it where a user may say, I want to identify myself and the relying party should be able to know that he is the user who says he is. Whether he wants to share the data or not is the choice of the user. But just the ID protocol needs to be defined properly, and I think that's one area where some work needs to happen for us to be able to identify users properly without, all the IDs going all over the place.
Anybody wants to add? Yeah. Maybe somebody is, yeah.
Yeah, hi, this is Dhanashri. I head products for a mid-sector private bank. So I have a question to Mr. BG Mahesh. So for account aggregator network, I mean, we've been very enthusiastic about using it, but we are facing two challenges. One, in terms of the use cases, because primarily it's more limited to the lending and, so how we can incorporate the more aspects of savings and spends. The other piece is also the cost, because to build it as an engine into the platform is not very, cost friendly. So how do you see that we can get more penetration by banking and financial services towards the account aggregator framework?
So at least from what we have heard from everybody is, if you want to onboard yourself onto account aggregator, it is not all that expensive. But if you think it is very expensive, I think you have to speak to Niraj and Vinay on why it is expensive, not to me. Okay, and see, the thing is, you should see account aggregator as an excellent pipe for you to get access only to the raw information. Okay, so, and you have to see that how it will continue with the existing, like example, journeys for the, your processing of the data, analytics, etc., which your Perfios is already into. So, with AA, one extra expense, which I would say, I would not even say expense, it will be an investment which you all will have to do is, like even for a home loan or any loan, it is not going to be based only on the banking data. As you go forward, you will have access to their investment information, their insurance policy, etc. So there will be some amount of effort and expense or investment on upgrading your underwriting models. But you will see a lot of your good results, say within a year or so. So I would say that if you're a small bank or whatever has to survive, and if it has to grow, you don't have an option, but you have to come on A. Okay, yeah. So, and as the years actually go by, I would say the cost will go down.
Thank you, sir. I think our time is up, but it was amazing, insightful sessions, which gave us kind of a peep into the future that what we are looking at, and definitely the entire India Stack future looks pretty bright. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.